Hey guys, welcome back to the Smell the Leather Cricket podcast where we discuss all things cricket from an average Joe's perspective. I'm Adit, and joining me as always is my co host Gaurav and our special guest for this series, who is the in house Australian expert, Nikhil. Now, guys, we have the India Australia series on hand. We've seen Australia take the ODI series 2-1. India take this T20 series 2-1. But none of that really matters given what we have on our hands because India Australia series are rarely remembered by what they do in the limited formats of the game. It's always that pinnacle format that really matters. And so we all remember India's famous historic 2-1 victory in the 2018-19 series. But can they do that again? We have a lot to discuss. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. The Border Gavaskar Trophy has been plagued by unavailability of players so far from both camps. And, let's start off with India's squad as a whole. Obviously, they're missing players like Rohit Sharma and Ishant Sharma. And Virat Kohli is going to be unavailable after the first test. But then, as a whole, Gaurav, what do you think about India's touring party for this all important test series?
Look, that squad, 13 members of that squad are from the same squad that toured Australia the last time around. So that's a great sign. The code is intact. When specifically when we talk about the first test, Virat Kohli would be there. So the batting lineup is pretty much sorted, except for the opening partner with alongside Mayank Agarwal. But then it looks a good side. They'll badly miss Ishant Sharma because he was bowling really well in the past couple of years, and the last series against Bangladesh in the pink test, he took 9 wickets. So that would be a big miss. But they would be backing the likes of Umesh Yadav and the others to come good alongside Bumrah and Shami. So yeah, when we talk about the first test, the Indian side looks pretty much settled. uh, the middle order has to come good. We saw Dahani getting a century in the warm-up game. That would be a good sign for them. Even Pujara got runs. Pant scored a terrific century. Gill and Shaw, Mayank, all of them were in the runs. So yeah, looks a good side to me.
You mentioned the first test, and it's going to be a day night test, which seems to be a regular feature of the Australian summer. We are starting off at Adelaide on the 17th. Nikhil, what are your thoughts on India's squad, and who do you think is going to partner Mayank Agarwal at the top of the order?
See, I think first of all, like how Gaurav said, their batting looks solid for the first test with Kohli right there. I think looking at the openers, Mayank is always as solid. He showed his temperament and how good a player he can be in the longest format of the game. He, not to forget, he made his debut in Australia and he started on with a good 70. I think it's a very big question for the selectors and the management on who the batsman along with Mayank is going to be. I see Shubman Gill partnering him because I think he's got a very good temperament. He's got good shots. He plays it all around the ground. Why not Prithvi Shaw? Is because I feel he's not flashy. He goes for every delivery, and in a test, you want someone who can slow things down. Yes, you can always bat like a Sehwag, but not with every delivery. You need to be a little more careful. And Shaw hasn't really come up to his expectations after his debut series against West Indies. So I really see Gill opening with Mayank.
Now, Shaw has played 6 test matches and he still averages above 50. He's the incumbent opener along with Mayank Agarwal. And if the warm up matches were any hint as to who India think their opening combination will be, I think given that they gave him the opening slot in both the warm up games, I think at least for this first test, they might go ahead and give him his I mean, he gets to keep a spot at least for the first test, and then they might see how it goes. At least that's how I see it. But then, Gaurav, do you see a case for maybe Shubman Gill coming into this squad, as Nikhil mentioned?
No, I'm with you on this. I think they'll go with Shaw at least for the first couple of tests and see how it goes, because He opened for them in the New Zealand Test, and the second Test, Hanuma Vihari opened, if I remember. So they'll want to give him a go, and then see how, and probably Shuman Gill, they might want him to bat in the middle order, probably at 5 or 6 once Kohli is not available and Rohit Sharma is back. So you might see Shuman Gill at 5 or 6. He's a young guy, so opening the innings in Australia is too much pressure. So they'll want to give him the cushion to not face the new ball and come in at 5 and 6. So yeah, I see the case for Mayank Agarwal and Prithvi Shaw, at least for the first couple of tests, and they'll be hoping that they don't change that combination going forward.
Moving down the order, I think Pujara obviously gets to keep his spot. Then we have the captain Kohli at number 5. I think Rahane again would. That seems like a settled middle order lineup with Vihari coming in at 6 as well. Now, for the keeper position, Pant is the preferred choice as far as foreign tests go. But then, do you see him as the keeper, or do you see a case for maybe Saha taking his spot?
Yeah, look, I think they'll definitely go in with Pant because he scored hundreds in Australia and England. Those things are very important, given that especially it's a pink ball test match. So you'd want that extra cushion for the batting lineup. They might be in a situation where they're 40 for 4. So in that case, Pant is a more reliable batsman than Saha. Take nothing away from Saha and his batting powers, but Saha is more important and more of a weapon when it comes to keeping in Indian conditions where the when the pitches are turning and you got to be at your best when it comes to wicket keeping, and that's where Shaha overcomes Pant. But here the fast bowlers, you have to keep mostly to the fast bowlers, and I think Pant has done pretty well in that regard. Even in English conditions, I remember he made a record of taking the highest number of catches in a single test match. So yeah, look, Pant, especially and informed Pant, you don't want to keep him out of the 11. So yeah.
Nikhil, are you in agreement with
Hello?
Gaurav there regarding Pant's position?
Yes, I totally agree because you don't want to keep an informed punt sitting on the bench for a long time. I think he deserves his chance. Not to forget, he's got a record against Australia 163 not out, if I'm not wrong, in the Sydney Test. He's played the Australian bowlers well. It's the same core bowling lineup that he's going to face again. I think he scored 22 runs in the last 5 balls in the pink ball practice match against Australia A. So that really shows a lot of uh, reasons on why we should go with Pant. Nothing against Saha. He's a very good batsman, a very good keeper as well. But I think we're going to face a lot of fast bowlers. And he has a record of 11 catches taken in a test match. If I'm not wrong, 11, I think. 11 or 12, I'm not sure. That really shows that he is a good keeper as well, reliable behind the stumps. So I think I would say 80% Pant to 20% Saha. But I think Kohli would go ahead with Pant given he likes someone who will attack in the end. Also, one more point is we're not sure if Jadeja is available for the first test match or not. So a left-hander attacking in the last 30, 40 overs for the team to give them the flourish is very important.
Now, you've spoken about Jadeja, which sort of moves us on to the bowlers. It's the pink ball test. Now, we've seen the pink ball, you get that little bit of extra bounce. And also, Adelaide is generally a spin friendly wicket. But then once it comes to the day night test matches, and if you look at the pink ball stats, I think spin really doesn't do very well in day night tests. I think spinners average 49 in day night test cricket at Australia. So for India specifically, do you see them going with an all out pace attack, or do you probably see them picking a spinner and, the three pacers?
Look, I would have Ashwin in the 11 along with the 3 fast bowlers. The last time when India included the 4 fast bowlers in Perth, if I remember, they lost the test match, and India are not historically are not the side that goes in with all pace attack. They want someone to hold one end up, and I think Ashwin does a fantastic job in there. Yeah, you rightly mentioned the averages of spinners in pink ball test matches in Australia, which is 49, and Nathan Lyon's average is 25 in that. So yeah, that's an alarming stat. But then four fast bowlers and would is something India does not prefer often. And the advantage with Ashwin is he gives you that batting as well down the order. So yeah, look, I my the three fast bowlers, Shami, Bumrah, and Umesh, along with that Ashwin and Hanuma Vihari as well. He bowls off spin, so that's how the bowling lineup looks to me.
You bring up an important point regarding Nathan Lyon's average of 25. It just shows that it's not that spinners can't take wickets on in day-night test matches. It's just probably a case of for spinners coming from abroad not adjusting to the conditions quick enough as well enough in day-night test cricket. Now, Nikhil, how do you see the makeup of India's bowling attack?
I think it's pretty much easy to guess. Like Gaurav said, three fast bowlers and one spinner. India is not really a kind of bowling attack who can go with four pacers because that generally doesn't go our way. Someone to slow things down, someone to keep the pressure up, the extra bounce, to keep the field closed. Yes, Ashwin is a perfect choice. So followed by Ashwin, Umesh, Jasprit Bumrah, and Mohammad Shami. I think it sounds like a very good bowling attack to challenge the conditions. Like you mentioned, the ping ball test, Adelaide does have some extra bounce. So Ashwin, this height can generate some bounce, can get the flick out of the gloves and, trouble the batsman. So it's going to be an exciting contest with these four bowlers.
Now, there's a lot of talk about India missing Sharma. I'm talking about Rohit Sharma, but then I think someone else that they're really going to be missing is Ishan Sharma. Because if you look at his record, at least since the start of 2018 in away tests, he averages about 20. And in the 2018-19 series against Australia, he took about 11 wickets with an economy rate of 2.5. And you're really going to miss that if you're part of the Indian camp. Given that Ishan Sharma is not going to be part of this series, Umesh Yadav, is he a sure starter, Gaurav, in your lineup?
For sure. He's been for the longest time. He's been the fourth seamer. Even in it's sad that he's not got that opportunity because of how strong the three female fast bowlers have bowled. But then whenever he has got a chance, he's proved his worth. Even in Indian conditions where there's not much help for the faster bowlers, he's taken 10 wicket hauls and uh, came up with match-winning performances. So yeah, especially in the pink ball test and in Adelaide, where there would be swing on offer, and he normally pitches the ball up compared to someone like a Mohammad Siraj or a Navdeep Saini who mostly bowls short of length. So in those conditions, Umesh Yadav would be more threatening to me, and he has experience of bowling in Australia. He was there even in the 2014 squad and the squad that toured in 2018. So yeah, Umesh Yadav definitely for 2 or 3 tests probably.
Very fair point there. But then, Nikhil, do you also see Umesh Yadav as a sure starter in your lineup?
Definitely, I think he's been playing in Australia since the 2011 series, where 11, 2014, and 2018 series. So I think he definitely deserves a chance. Yes, sometimes the games haven't gone in his favor. He's been expensive, or there have been some kind of fast bowlers to take his place. But like Gaurav said, with the pink ball, someone who likes to bowl up, he can swing the ball as well. So I think he's a sure starter at least for the first 2 or 3 test matches.
Fair point there. And I think now we can sort of move on to discussing about the opposition. So, Nikhil, why don't you start us off with your thoughts on Australia's makeup of their squad and their injury concerns and all that stuff?
So if you don't count this week and the news that's coming this week and just look at the India Australia squad, I think the batting looks very similar. Yes, they're a bit confused with their opening slots because of Warner's absence. But in the middle order, they have like how India has Pujara, Rahane, and Kohli, obviously. Australia have Marnus Labuschagne, Smith, and someone like a Matthew Wade or Travis Head to bat there at 5. But now with there have been speculation that Smith has been having some back issues. So yes, he will definitely somehow manage to play because he's someone who loves to play in the big games. But how does he play and how does he perform is a question. So yeah, the potential openers choice with Marcus Harris does look as Joe Burns, someone who's performed well with David Warner, and Marcus Harris also has a pretty decent record, and this will be the perfect time for him to step up. Coming to the wicketkeeper, I think Tim Payne is quite the obvious choice. As a captain, he's done well, but I think the series is also an important series for him to step up as a batsman. And given that there is a bit of speculation on Smith's injury, and you don't know if how the openers are going to fare. Yes, Head and Wade have done well, but I think it's time that Smith, Payne steps up and scores some runs as well. His last 50 was, I think, a year back against England in England. So I think it's time for him as well. And obviously, the four spinners, the four bowlers are Nathan Lyon, Pat Cummins, Mitchell Stark, and Josh Hazelwood. Surprisingly, Nathan Lyon has 50 wickets at the Adelaide. So I think he's going to look to get more. And Australian as well do have their plans on point. So I think it looks a much settled squad like the Indians have, bearing the injuries to Smith, and you don't know how serious Sean Abbott is, and you really don't see Moses Hendrick is coming into the squad in 11. So I think it looks pretty balanced as the Indian team is. So let's see how it goes.
Balanced it is. Gaurav, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, that batting looks vulnerable to me, to be honest. Side of Marnus Labuschagne and Steve Smith, either side of them, that batting is pretty much, it's not stable, if I may say. In the opening slot, Marcus Harris is definite shoe-in. Other than that, Langer mentioned they would want to try Matthew Wade in the opening slot. So we have not seen him bat up the order, but it's a big possibility that Matthew Wade would open with Marcus Harris. Apart from that, Joe Burns, they've been speaking highly of Joe Burns, but then he has scored just at 62 runs in the last nine innings of the Sheffield series. So that's a concern for them. I think they'll go in with Marcus Harris and Matthew Wade, as a coach mentioned, and Cameron Green in the middle order, which Langer mentioned again that if he passes the concussion test, so he'll be a definite part of the 11. But yeah, that bowling lineup is a very threatening and a very strong bowling lineup. It matches up to the Indian bowling lineup and probably a bit stronger in Australian conditions.
Mhm.
Nathan Lyon and the three fast bowlers, they would be posing a lot of threat and lot of challenges for the Indian batsmen. But if the Indian bowlers can get the openers out early and bring in Labuschagne and Smith in, and make them face pink wall in that toilet, that 40-50 minutes, yeah, then it's going to be difficult for the Australian team, I think, because you see Matthew Wade and Travis said they certainly are very good batsmen, but not some not players like Martin or Ponting of the Australian team of the past, when you thought even if you lose two or three early wickets, you have got batting depth. So yeah, the two batsmen have to do the bulk of the scoring.
Speaking of batting depth, I think one of the main reasons for India's victory in the 2018-19 series was that they were able to pick up the top order pretty much cheaply throughout the series. I think Australia's top order averaged 27 throughout the series in the 2018-19 series with a top score of 79. So when your top order doesn't get those big scores, you're bound for trouble. But then, having said that, I think Australia missed David Warner and Stephen Smith in that series. Unfortunately, David Warner is going to be missing the first test, but then that man, Stephen Smith, he's going to be back, and he likes facing the Indians given he averages 80 against India in test match cricket. But I think at the top of the order is where India's opportunity lies, because Marcus Harris, he's played about 9-10 test matches, averages in the early 20s. And Matthew Wade hasn't really opened in test match cricket before. He's done it in the limited overs format, but then test match cricket is a whole different ball game. Joe Burns has been out of form, as you mentioned, in the Sheffield Shield, and he's looked horribly out of form in the practice games as well. So I think India's opportunity lies in that top order. But then if you 3 and 4 are going to be pretty hard to get past. But then if you do get past, you have Travis Head who averages about 40, which is not bad at all. But then he isn't that established in the Australian order. And moving further down, you have a newcomer in Cameron Green and Payne, as you mentioned, Nikhil, who hasn't really stepped up with the bat of late. So, apart from the 3 and 4, Australia's batting looks a little bit shaky. And then if you come into their bowlers, I think, as you mentioned, like in Australian conditions, Stark, Lyon, Hazelwood, Cummins. I don't see a stronger bowling attack than that anywhere in the world, to be very honest. So it's a very settled lineup, and I'm glad that Smith and Warner's going to be back as well, because that makes it a much more even contest. And you, as a cricket fan, you want to see those battles between the top players from both sides. So I think it's going to be a very interesting makeup for Australia as well.
Yeah, you rightly mentioned about Warner's point, especially his record in Adelaide, and but I would be actually surprised if he actually makes the second test because the injury looked bad, and India would be hoping that he misses second and probably, hopefully, the entire series, because that would even out, and Kohli's absence and Warner's absence. So but then, yeah, as cricket fans, we would love to see him get back on the field and watch some great cricket.
Now, one segment that we like to do here on the show is the key trivia and stats. Nikhil, why don't you get us started off?
Well, since you're speaking about David Warner, it's like how we're speaking about Rohit Sharma in the ODI series. So David Warner at Adelaide averages 80.38, and his last innings was a 336 or 38 not against Pakistan. So it really shows how much Australia is going to miss that man. It's the start of the summer. They need him here, facing the big Indian giants. And yes, Australia are definitely feeling the heat, and really need to see if, like Gaurav mentioned, if he'll really be able to be 100% fit for the second test match at Perth, if I'm not wrong, or wherever it is, and for maybe the whole of the series, because I think his fitness is going to be a key issue for the Australian batting. And let's hope that he comes back and, scores the runs that he probably would have scored in the first test match. Moving on to the second fact is, well, I think you guys would have seen it. The Australian journals are saying King Kohli arrives in Adelaide, and well, the man does deserve all the respect when it comes to Adelaide. He averages 73, and he has the 13th best average overall in Adelaide among all the great cricketers, and second among the current cricketers. So it's really going to be how interesting, given that is the only test match that he's playing, and we all know how aggressive he is. So he'll definitely want to go back with a win and a big score under his belt. So let's see Mitchell Stark gearing up at Kohli with a pink ball. Can't wait.
That's a great start about Kohli there. Gaurav, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, it's pretty much about Smith and Kohli only. So Smith, as you mentioned, averages 84 against India in Test match cricket, and he has scored 7 centuries in the last 8 Test matches that he has played against India. So and 10 overall. So, and apart from that, on Kohli, so Kohli has scored 3 centuries in Adelaide, so which is the most by him at a particular venue. He's not scored more than two at any venue. So, yeah, Adelaide and Kohli go well together. We remember the 2014 series. He scored 2 centuries in that very close game where they lost, where he got out to Nathan Lyon, if I remember,
Yeah.
caught at deep mid wicket.
Netherlands turned the match.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Awesome. Now, moving on to our match predictions. Gaurav, first test match. Kohli's in the team, fortunately. What are your predictions?
look, I think Australia have an edge for sure, but I wouldn't say it as a advantage or a favorites, but they do have the edge. But then again, it's that man Smith. If they can get him out early, it's going to be a pretty even contest. But right now, I would say Australia has a slightly upper hand.
Nikhil, there's a smile on your face hearing that. Are you going for Australia as well?
No, I'm going for India. I'm going for Virat Kohli's men. So the reason being, I think we spoke about how Gaurav said that how Smith goes, and yes, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Smith because in 2014-15 when he scored a plethora of runs against India, he had a lot of batting backup, before and after him. Here, I think there's going to be a lot of responsibility on him, and I think if India do have the edge in their batting, so I really back Kohli's men to take the first test.
That's great to hear. So it's at 1-1, and we'll see how the test match pans out. It's going to be very,
We
very
would like
exciting.
What do you
to
think?
know your thoughts as
What do
well.
you think?
I think Australia has an edge. Given it's a day-night test, they're more used to that, whereas India has only played one of those before.
I think India and BCCI were brave enough to agree to play the first test match as a pink ball test match, because normally it doesn't happen that way. It's the second or the third test match or the final test match where the pink ball test match is scheduled. And especially in a place like Australia, India just played the one test match as opposed to Australia's seven, and they won all the seven test matches. So it's going to be a very difficult task, but if they can come up with the good, it will be a test match to remember, one of the best in India's test history.
And that'll be a good note for Kohli to leave the series on for sure. But then this is it from us, guys. And we would love to hear your thoughts on what you think on how the first test match is going to pan out between India and Australia. So let us know in the comment section down below. Thank you, Nikhil, for your time. Thanks a lot, Gaurav. It's been a
Thanks.
pleasure. And thanks a lot, guys, for watching if you're still sticking around.
Thanks. Cheers.
Goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.